Sir Sanjit, meanwhile, developed a very special friendship with a man whose father, an aristocrat, had given up his famous title and passed it on to him. This son spent at least part of his time on his northern English estates and often took his seat in Parliament. It was there the two had met. They had much in common, including a wish to protect the wild Waziran forest gorillas of Africa and look after the fate of wildlife in general. Sir Sanjit and the English lord also worked on health issues affecting the poorer continents. When the son and father had grown apart in the 50s and 60s, Sir Sanjit had been instrumental in bringing the two men together, until in the 1990s they had again become reconciled. The families became firm friends, taking holidays together and spending time as one another's guests in Africa and India. The politics of the United Kingdom being what they were, a law to ban hunting with dogs was at last established, thanks in good part to the work done by Ray and his friends in the House and his friend in the House of Lords. The urban foxes were highly relieved that their country cousins would no longer be subjected to being pursued over hill and dale by the unspeakable in pursuit of the uneatable. By packs of howling men and women mounted on galloping horses and accompanied by hunger-crazed dogs. But no sooner had this law been passed than another began to be mooted in the House. Known as the Urban Vermin Culling Bill, it was put before Parliament by William Bale MP, Conservative for barking madly, in the county of Gloucestershire, in vengeful response, many of the left believed, to the success of the townies he knew who claimed nothing of the real countryside and were merely bent on curtailing the pleasures of honest rural folk. But many honest rural folk were as disgusted by the hunts which flew willy-nilly across their land, doing untold damage, followed by the supporters in massive vehicles which created further chaos, appeared to be missed by the hunters, no matter how many farmers attempted to block their paths, arguing that their livings were threatened far more by rampaging dogs, packs of dogs and riders, than any number of hen-coop raiding foxes. Not that the urban foxes approved of fowl stealing, since they had long since learned to enjoy their food well cooked, and in Southall South and its surrounding locales were inclined to take their chicken tandoori rather than raw. The bill began to gather momentum across party lines when the London Daily Mail determined that its falling readership could be stimulated by supporting Mr. Bale's entirely apocryphal stories of city foxes carrying off infants, feasting on cats and smaller dog breeds, and generally behaving like packs of, as an editorial put it, canine Huns. When a woman in Hackney was found to swear that her husband, returning intoxicated from the hoop and hooligan, had woken in the gutter to find his hand being gnawed by two monstrous red foxes, even the Times, at the instigation of Rupert Murdoch, its proprietor, felt obliged to carry several features asking if the fox epidemic was threatening the health and welfare of citizens everywhere. A Birmingham man claimed that his wife had been set upon by mad foxes and run in terror to the canal where she had drowned. Another in Manchester told of walking home with his Indian takeaway in a carrier bag, only to have the food snatched from him by what he called an organised pack. Some youths in Lewisham told how they were attacked by rabid foxes foaming at the mouth, though no case of rabies had been recorded in England for the past several years. Another story linked the taste of foxes for geese, ducks, chickens and other farmyard fowl with the possibility of their spreading some form of avian influenza, now being called mad parrot disease by the tabloids. Needless to say, all these stories were proven false by investigators, but they swiftly entered the mythology of public life. As every journalist knows, truth is never really the issue in the public mind. The dominant story is what concerns readers of tabloids and broadsheets alike, and anything which contradicts it, no matter how convincing the evidence, merely becomes a marginalized alternative. Thus it was that the urban foxes, who had enjoyed so much approval from the average city dweller, now suddenly found themselves likened to the wolves which had allegedly pursued troikas in old Russia, or the dingoes said to have carried off children in the Australian outback. No longer was cunning Renyard an affectionate term, nor was old Rufus playing a useful role in the urban ethology. Opinions would change, of course, as they always did, but in the media engendered hysteria of the moment. Okay, this could do with a bit of punctuating, sorry. At the moment, foxes had become a pressing problem and a social menace. All the outrage and fear which the tabloid press had once turned on asylum-seeking immigrants and those looking for work from the old English colonies became focused on the foxes. The voices of liberalism and reason were drowned by the tabloid shout. Fox News even considered changing its name for the UK market, where... Anyway, it was better known as Sky News. Murdoch had rather enjoyed the sobriquet of the Sky Fox until now. Not that the immigrants and Commonwealth citizens were unhappy with this turn of events, which led them, sad to say, to join in the general outcry against Macaba and her relations, just as Jews had been happy to condemn Jamaican and Indian newcomers to the British Isles in the 1950s, and Pakistanis now claimed that Poles were threatening their jobs. There seems to be no end to the human capacity for prejudice, however temporary, especially where it helps avoid any self-blame and allows them to feel that they're siding with the majority. Indeed, some people who might otherwise have been expected to speak up for the Vulpine cause were so glad to see different groups of human beings joining ranks against a common, non-human enemy that they were either silent or echoed the general condemnation. Sir Sanjad and his cousins of the urban jungle viewed all these developments with considerable trepidation. Had it not been for Mowgli's eloquence in Parliament and the press, together with the humanity of some of his political colleagues of all political stripes, he might even have witnessed parties of anti-Vulpine vigilantes prowling the streets with nets and other implements, though not happily with shotguns or any firearms, these still being illegal in the hands of private citizens. Nonetheless, it seemed touch and go when Bale and his fellow colours suggested arming the bobby on the beat with dart guns and tasers designed to stun all large urban vermin. Luckily, Sir Sanjad's friend Anthony Wellington, Labour Fulham West, pointed out that people were as unlikely to find their dogs victims of the puffin policeman as any fox, and the idea was dropped. The bill itself was not. While no one accepted Percy Effingham Hard's suggestion that experienced country people be bussed into town and given sturdy hunting bicycles to pursue the fox with packs of no longer employed hounds, it was becoming increasingly likely that innocent foxes actually spotted during the day when lying out on roofs and patches of waste ground, or indeed enjoying the security of whatever sets they had made for themselves, were likely to be attacked by members of a specially formed animal security service, whose job would be to kill them in whatever way was most practical. The old amiable balance between fox and man seemed about to come to an end. The rest, I'm afraid, you'll have to read. Thank you.